There is. Hey, good morning. Welcome to ICU. Quick show of hands. How many of you are from ICU High School? Most of you. Do you want the good news or the bad news? The good news is you guys will follow the same pattern as last year's ICU High School graduates who came to Startup program last year. You're doing exactly the same program. You'll probably end up in the same classes. That's the good news. The bad news is you'll probably have me as your teacher. Almost all of the ICU high school students ended up in Stream 1 and Stream 2, and in spring I teach Stream 1, and in winter I teach Stream 2. So you've got a very, very, very good chance that I'll be your teacher. And I'll be double checking how much attention you paid today. So anyway, today I've got to teach you guys about academic writing. Two reactions people normally have to this: academic writing, how boring. And academic writing, how difficult. Well, hopefully today I can make you see that this doesn't need to be boring, and hopefully today I can make you see that this can be easy. So my job is to try and make this seem easy and interesting. So hopefully that's what I'll try and do. So before we move on to the first slide, how many people know Calvin and Hobbes? Got a quick Calvin and Hobbes cartoon for you. I'll give you 2 minutes to read this. Okay, when you see many of the papers that are written at university, you would think, yeah, Calvin is right. But Calvin is not right. The purpose of academic writing is not to obscure poor reasoning and inhibit clarity. The purpose of academic writing is to take things that you understand and make it clear and easy for other people to understand. And look at the title that he's got up here: The Dynamics of Interbeing and Monological Imperatives in Dick and Jane, a study in psychic translational gender modes. Boring. I don't want to see those kind of titles at all in any of your papers. A little bit later today we will talk about titles and how to make them interesting and so on, but don't follow that model. So follow a different model. So, very first thing we need to ask ourselves, why do we write? Anyone get any ideas? Why do we write? Any ideas? No one's willing to put their hands up. It's the first lecture that I say, oh, why do we write?
To put your ideas in order.
Okay, that's one reason why we write. Any others? It's a good one. Say again? To spread your own ideas, kind of similar, kind of related. Okay, any more? You're missing the obvious one. Most people write because their teachers and their universities demand that they write. How many people write essays for fun? There's no hands going up. So the majority of people write because they have to. Their teacher says, write me a paper. And you got to write it. Let's be honest. If after today's class, ICU says you don't need to write an essay for Startup program, how many people would write an essay? There's no hands going up. So, one of the first reasons that you write is because you have to. Now, why does your university and why does your teacher make you write? Is it because we want you to be unhappy over the Christmas holiday? Probably not. I hope not. No. The comments that you guys made about showing your reasoning, showing your thinking, ordering your thinking, we want to see what you think. We want to see, can you think? We want to see how you order and group related things together. We want to see, can you link and order things together? So your writing is a chance for you to impress your teachers. Hey, look what I produced. And we want to be impressed. We don't want to sit there, oh no, another boring paper I have to grade. We want to go, wow, hey, that's pretty good. We want to be impressed by your writing. A, it's more interesting for us to read it. And B, it means we're doing our job properly. So always think of the writing not as a task that you have to do, although of course you do have to do, but try and think of it as a way of showing what you can do. It's an opportunity for you to show off your research skills, your writing skills, your organizational skills, your thinking skills. It's a showcase for you. So that's one of the main reasons for why we write. Now, this is what students always complain. They find it difficult. I can't think of a topic. Yeah, you can. It's easy. Think of what interests you. If I choose a topic for you, if I'm lucky, 5% of you would be interested in what I'm interested in. And the other 95 would be like, oh no, I've got to write on that. It's much better for you to choose your own topic and choose one that interests you. Because it's a lot of work. You've got to think about it. What exactly am I doing? You've got to go to the library and do the research, pull out the books, pull out the journals. You've got to read them. You've got to think about them some more. Take out the right bits, order them, start writing about it, check your writing. It's not a difficult thing, but it's labour intensive. You have to do a load of stuff. And that becomes much easier to do if the subject matter is something that interests you. Because if it's something that you find boring, you won't want to do the work. So my first suggestion to you guys, before you do anything, is choose a topic that's interesting for you. That's going to save you a whole load of effort, because if you really like this topic, reading on this topic doesn't seem like homework. It seems like fun because it's a topic you're interested in. Now, narrowing our topic down a little bit, we come to something that I call the 5 A's. These are the important things to consider when you're choosing a topic. My remote control working? It's an important thing to consider. Come on. Yes, eventually it works. The first thing then, your topic has to be academic in nature. Theoretically, your topic should connect to one of the departments at university. For example, you couldn't decide to write a paper about Mickey Mouse. We don't have a cartoons department. We don't have a humour department. But what you could do is you could write a paper about Disney's business model and why it's more successful than Sanrio, why Mickey Mouse is more of a global character than Hello Kitty. And that becomes a business paper, which is academic. We've got business departments. You might be interested in football. You cannot write a paper about why Barcelona are fantastic and amazing and super duper and you love them. But you could write a paper about how Barcelona's sports training methods are superior to other teams, and that's why their athletes are faster and fitter and get injured less often. And it becomes a sports science paper. We've got a sports science department. So if you start with what's interesting for you, and then see how we can twist it around to make it an academic paper, that's a good way to start. And almost anything can be twisted around to be an academic paper if you're creative. Oh, come on. I guess my remote control back. It works now. Most important, your paper has to be argumentative. There's no point to write it otherwise. There has to be an argument, and the argument could have 2 sides or 3 sides or 4 sides or 5 sides or however many sides, and in your paper you're arguing that your view, your opinion, is the most correct one. And you're trying to convince people that your idea is the best. Because there might be someone who says, no, 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 Manchester United's training methods are better than Barcelona's. There might be someone who says, no, 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 Hello Kitty is a more engaging character than Mickey Mouse. So you have to be able to argue to prove that your thinking is correct. So for example, I could get all the biological data, I could get all the physical data, all the medical data, and I could write a perfect, grammatical, perfect English paper saying why we need air to live. We need air to live. Is there anybody who disagrees and says, no, we don't? So there's no point to write that paper. Now, if I take some data on test scores and all sorts of things like that, and I come up with a paper arguing that the average man is more intelligent than the average woman, is there anybody who disagrees? Yeah, there should be a few girls putting their hands up. That would be an argumentative paper. So there has to be some argument going on in your paper, something that you're trying to prove. If there isn't, there's no point to write it. What else? It should be achievable. Shouldn't be easy, but you should be able to achieve what you say you're going to do in the paper. So if you say that you're going to analyze the 2012 American election and you're going to look at why Obama won, fair enough, okay. That might be achievable. You got like 4 weeks. You got 5 paragraphs. You could probably cover that. But if you turn around and say in this essay that you're going to cover the whole rise and fall of the Roman Empire, there's no way on earth you're going to do this in 5 paragraphs in 4 weeks. It's just too big a topic. It's not achievable. That would require a book. So when you're choosing the topic, you need to make sure you choose a topic that's small enough, that's achievable, but it's not so small that it's too easy. What else? Oh, come on. I think my battery's running out. Okay, access. Access has got a couple of meanings. First and foremost, it means that you have access to the research material that you need. So if you're writing a paper and the only supporting documents are CIA documents, is there anybody in the room who's in the CIA? You're not going to get access to those documents. You can't write the paper. Similarly, if the only documents you can find are written in Chinese, how many people here read and write Chinese? 1. She could do it. Those documents would be accessible for her. They wouldn't be to anyone else. So you need to be able to find material that A, physically you can get. It's not secret. And B, it's in a language that you can understand. Otherwise, you don't have access to the materials, the books, the journals, the articles that you need to prove you're right. So, that access is important. Now, the second part of access, maybe not so much for this paper, but academic writing in general, if your paper is concerned with, I don't know, teachers at ICU, maybe you would want to do an interview with teachers at ICU. That's great if you live in Mitaka. It's easy for you to get access to them, to come in and interview them. It's not so easy if you live in Hokkaido or Okinawa. So if part of your research involves you talking to people, you need to be able to get access to the people that you need to talk to. So that's what access covers. What else? Attractive. Now, I chose this on purpose. I figured that the guys would think that Angelina Jolie was attractive, the girls would think that Brad Pitt was attractive, even if he's got a funny beard, and the art lovers might even like the art. Nothing appeals to everybody. The guys might think Brad Pitt, the girls might go Angelina. Nobody can write something that everybody is going to like. Nobody can write something that everybody is going to be interested in. But somebody has to be interested in it, not just you. Now, first and foremost, you must find your topic attractive. You must find it interesting because you're the one who's going to do the work. But somebody else must be interested in it too. So I'll give you an example. We go back to academic. One of the departments we have here is biology. Universities also have medical departments. So if we look at the subject of medicine and biology, okay, it's academic. We take argumentative. We're looking at the differences between men and women. That would be argumentative. Access, sure, maybe we've got access to the people and the subjects, the data that we need. It's achievable. It's a small enough topic that we can do. In terms of attractive then, my paper is going to show that the little fluff, the smelly stuff that comes from between your toes, that women's ones smell worse than men's. It's academic, it's argumentative. I can get access to the material. Is there anybody who really wants to read this paper? It's not attractive to people. So you need to try and get a topic that some people also want to read, besides you. You will always find your topic interesting because you're the one who chose it. But it needs to have appeal to some other people as well. So, attractive, very, very important point. Always think, this thing I'm writing, is anybody else going to read it besides me and Rab? Because unfortunately, I've got no choice. I have to read your papers to grade them. So make them attractive. Okay, moving on. The research question. This is how we start almost every paper. We start with a question. And the purpose of your paper is to answer this question. Are women's feet smellier than men's? Did Obama deserve to win the election? Is Barcelona's training methods better than anybody else's? We're starting with a question. And the answer comes from your paper. So when you're choosing a topic, sure, politics. And we narrow it down to a smaller area. Okay, American politics. We narrow it down again. The election. At some point, you stop narrowing it down and you come up with a question. And this is what your essay is going to ask. So think on yourselves, what's your research question? This is the key to starting your research. So if my research question was on the 2012 US election, I don't need to look at Bush and Gore 2000. I can cut that out of my research because it's not connected to my question, which was 2012. If my 2012 election question is the American election, I don't need to look at French stuff, German stuff, Greek stuff. I've focused it on the American one. So coming up with a good research question helps your research. Funny that, yeah. Good research question helps research. Because it helps you know what areas you do need to look at and what areas you can forget about. Because if it's not connected to your question, don't research it. You've not got enough time. So the question narrows down your focus. Come on. Now, here's a question. You could start with that. Is Rab a good teacher? My teaching methods, maybe they're a little bit different from some other teachers, and you could compare my teaching style with other teachers and so on, and you could come up with the idea, is Rab a good teacher? Now, for example, I'm not wearing a shirt and tie. I almost never wear a shirt and tie. Is that relevant to being a good teacher? I don't know. For you, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But that would be a good question to start with. How about the ELP, a good program? Well, it's now called the ELA. I forgot to change that on my slides. That means I'm a bad teacher. These were last year's slides when it was still the ELP. Again, we could compare ICU's ELA with Wasada's SILS. We could compare it with Sophia's one and so on. The big problem with both of these questions is the word good. What does good mean? Is Rab a good teacher? Do you mean that I'm friendly with the students? Do you mean that I give everybody A's to be nice to them? Does it mean that I'm really tough and I make my students work hard so that they learn? What does good mean? That would be a bad question because we haven't defined good. Similarly with ELA, ELP. What does it mean to be a good program? Does it mean good that we've got lots of computers on campus? Does it mean good that we train you how to use them? Does it mean good that our campus is beautiful? Good that our prices are expensive? Good that our prices are cheap? What does good mean? So in all your research questions, you need to specify what you actually mean if you're going to use a word like good. So using good is actually bad. You'd want to use a more specific word that ideally shows what you're actually talking about. So, we've got this. Now, in writing, there's a really old writing rule, which is called the rule of 3. Our brains, psychologists, cognitive scientists, they've studied this for a while. Our brains process things in 3s easily. We start giving things in more than 3s, people switch off. For example, I'm from Scotland, and I want to convince you, Christmas holiday, go to Scotland. So I could tell you that, Scotland's people are very, very friendly. They're very chatty when you meet them in the streets. I could tell you about the weather. You've got a good chance of seeing snow. I can tell you about the costs. It's not so expensive, especially now the yen has got stronger against the pound. I can tell you about the shopping. There's loads of department stores there and the prices will be very cheap and the range of shopping is very good. I can tell you about boring. You've already switched off because I've started to make my list too long. If I break it down into 3, I'm going to tell you about Scotland in 3 areas. I'm going to tell you about the economics, I'm going to tell you about the people, and I'm going to tell you about the culture. Boom. People will remember that. Things that come in 3s, if they're delivered clearly in 3s, people remember. So this is a really old but really important writing rule. Give things in 3s. And all the way through the rest of today's program, the examples that I'm giving you in writing, you should be able to see 3s popping up all the time. So, the first one, for example, come on, the thesis statement. Now, I don't know how much or how little academic writing essays you guys have done at high school. A real academic essay needs a thesis statement. How many people know what a thesis statement is? A few. Okay. Take a guess. How many parts are in a thesis statement? Take a guess. How many parts in a thesis statement? 3. Thank you. So, there's 3 parts in a thesis statement. There's a topic, there's a claim, and there's a support. Always. Now, let's put in a topic. Could be Rab and the topic. You were asking, is Rab a good teacher? So I would be the topic of the thesis statement. We would have the claim that I'm the best teacher in the ELA or ELP. That would be a claim. Now, I know lots of other teachers who would disagree, so this makes it a very arguable paper. Now, what support do we need? Because I'm the most handsome. Now, possibly that would be argumentative as well. Now, look at the support I've put in there. Does handsome automatically equate to being the best teacher? So this would be a very weak thesis statement because my support hasn't really got a very good connection to my claim. I would need different supports to prove the point. Now, let's move on to another one. The ELA, or ELP, as I've put up here. ICU's English program. That's a topic. The claim could be the best program in Japan. And now look at the support. Because of critical thinking, we teach it. Because of the academic skills, we teach. And because of digital literacy, which we teach. How many supports have I given you? 3. Everything good comes in 3s. So not only does this have 3 sections, a topic, a claim, and a support, but the support section also has 3 sections. The rule of 3 coming up right again. Now, these 3 support sections, the topic and the claim, we need to rewrite it as a thesis statement. And a thesis statement is usually, not always, but usually, it's the last sentence at the end of your first paragraph. You've got an introduction paragraph, last sentence, end of that introduction is your thesis. So here's a good example of a thesis statement. ICU's ICU's ELA is the best university program in Japan because it's the only one in Japan that teaches critical thinking, academic skills, and digital literacy to a very high level. That would be a standard academic essay thesis statement. It's got a topic, ICU's ELA. It's got a claim, argumentative, because Waseda and Sophia would disagree. It's got a claim, best university program in Japan, and we've given 3 reasons. From working on the startup program every year since it started, missing thesis statements is one of the biggest problems that students do in their essays. At the end of the first paragraph should be 1-sentence thesis statement exactly like this, with a topic, with a claim, and 3 reasons. And it's the one thing that is frequently missing from most students' essays. So, can everybody stand up? Stand up. Very important part of today's lecture. And I want you to put your hand on your heart. Put your hand on your heart, everybody. And I want you to repeat after me. I promise that at the end of my introduction paragraph, there will be a 3-part thesis statement with 3 clear reasons. Thank you. Now remember that promise you made when you are writing this essay, because it gets very boring for me in every single feedback. Where is your thesis statement? Where is your thesis statement? Where is your thesis statement? Don't make me bored. Make sure you put one in. Very important. Okay, let's look in a bit more detail at introduction paragraphs. Introduction paragraphs have a number of sections. How many sections? 3 sections. The first one has to get attention. I got your attention. That's what your first sentence or your second sentence must do to the reader. Wow, what is this? You want to get that shock reaction from the reader. You've got to get their attention. Think of the first 1, 2, 3 sentences of your introduction. Think of that as the beginning of a movie. When you're flicking through the channels on oh, there's a movie just started. Maybe you'll watch about 10 minutes of the movie before you decide, hey, this is crap, I'm changing the channel. Oh, this is great, I'm going to watch it. That's what the first 2 or 3 sentences of your essay has to do. It has to make me think, this is not crap, this is good, I want to read this. That's the attention that you want to get in the readership. Get the attention. Once we've got the attention, we can move on to do more stuff. Then we give some background information on the topic. Enough background information that people will understand your thesis. You will understand your thesis because you've been researching the topic. But if your topic is really unusual, if your topic is really strange, other people, i.e. me and some of the other ELA teachers, we might not understand it because we've not been researching that topic. So some of your topics, the background information section will be quite small. Some of them, they'll be quite big. So for example, I think almost everybody in this room went to a Japanese high school. Almost everybody in this room went to a Japanese junior high, and almost everybody in this room, unless you're in the wrong place, is coming to a Japanese university. So if your paper is on education in Japan, the teachers, me and the other ELA teachers, we teach at a university in Japan. We all know about education in Japan. We don't need much background to understand your thesis statement. Now, imagine your paper was not on education in Japan. Imagine your paper was on French economics. I don't know much about French economics. Most of the other teachers in the ELA don't know much about French economics. You do because you chose to research that topic. Your background section would be bigger because you need to give us more information to understand what you understand. So you need to think about your topic. How likely is it that university teachers in an English department in Japan will understand your topic? If we do, background can be small. If we don't, background needs to be bigger. And at the very, very end of the background, that's where we put in the thesis statement. Okay, so getting attention. Many ways we can do this. You could put in a quote. Famous quote at the beginning of your paper if the quote is connected to your paper. So if my paper was on politics, I could start with a quote, "Politicians lie," by the famous journalist I.F. Stone. And it's very common that politicians lie. So if my paper is on politics, that would be a good intro. Now, if my paper is on education in Japan, that's not a good opening quote. I'd need to find something about education. I could go for shock. In the time it took to read this sentence, 3 children have died. Wow. While I've been reading this sentence, 3 children have died. That's quite a shocking statistic. And that'll get people's attention. We could go for suspense. Dying is sometimes not a negative experience. What? Is there anybody in this room who thinks dying is a positive experience? Everybody would disagree with that statement. And it hooks into you that it makes you want to read on more to find out why this crazy writer thinks dying could be positive. So we're using the suspense to make people want to see what happens next. That's a technique you can use. Could be interesting statistics. Every 3 seconds a car is made somewhere in the world. That's a statistic. Now, it might or might not be interesting depending if you're interested in cars or not, and not everybody likes the same stuff. But if my essay was on the business model of Toyota, this might be an interesting statistic to put in. Now, we could use humour. The greatest US presidents are immortalised at Mount Rushmore. You guys know what Mount Rushmore is? Mountain in America, and it's got the carvings of the American presidents' faces, the famous 4. Now, that's not very funny. But when I do this, Mount Rushmore people, Mount Rushmore people, Mount Rushmore people, what is he doing there? So, you can have some humour at the beginning of your paper. Now, this humour, that sentence is only funny if this photo is there too. Now, why not put a photograph in your essay? Now, I might get into trouble for doing this. You guys have to upload your essay onto ICU servers, and if all of you put in really big, high-definition, high-quality photographs, you might crash the server. But in my own classes, I tell my students, well, you know, a photo is worth 1,000 words. If there's a photograph that really matches your topic and it says something important, why not put the photograph in and mention the photograph in the text? So, for example, if I put best presidents at Mount Rushmore and I've got that underneath, it works together. So you can put photos, charts, tables, statistics, all of those things, you can put them into your papers. Because the paper basically is taking knowledge from your head and a viewpoint from your head and putting it in the head of the reader. And tables and charts and photos can help do that. So of course you can put them in. Unless of course the computer department said just for the startup program don't. Now I'll double check on that, and if you don't hear back from me ever again, it's okay to put photos in the paper, but if there is a problem with it, I'll put a message on the Net Commons page saying, please don't put photos in this time. But I need to double check that. Okay, what else? Image charts and graphs. We just mentioned those. Use them only if they're clear. This, very simple, very clear slide. Types of food, men and women, percentages of people eat them. Simple, clear, easy to understand. The next slide, not so easy. And the next slide is a real slide from a US military presentation. You ready for this? Can anybody understand that, even if I give you an hour? It's like a bowl of spaghetti. it doesn't make the paper any clearer. In fact, it actually makes it less clear. So remember, if you are putting in charts or tables or anything like this, it needs to be clear and easy for the reader to understand. Yeah? Okay, what else? The background, yeah? So I mentioned basically how much background depends on the thesis and how much people will need to understand the thesis statement. Well, here's a thesis statement. Topic, Lafroig. Claim is superior to Lagavulin. Support, superior in colour, aftertaste, and ethical business history. It's a perfectly grammatical sentence. It's written in English with no spelling mistakes. It follows the thesis statement model. How many people in this room understand that sentence? No real hands going up. So, this tells me I need to give quite a lot of background to explain this thesis, because without the background, you guys haven't got a clue what that means. So, what I'm going to say now would be the background that I would write in my introduction. In Scotland, whisky is divided into 6 different regions. Each region has a different taste. The smallest region is one tiny island called Islay. This tiny island has over 10 whiskies. The whiskies on the south of the island are usually thought to be the best, and Lafroig and Lagavulin are only 100 metres apart. Bang! Thesis statement. Lafroig is superior to Lagavulin. Now you understand it because I've given you the background about whisky in Scotland, the regions, the island, the south coast. I've given enough background so that the reader can understand the thesis statement. And I'm Scottish. So you should trust me when I talk about whisky. So, that works. I've given enough background that people can understand. And I've given you some background about me, about why you should believe me. Now, in your essay, is there going to be anything in your essay to tell us why we should believe you? What's your credibility? Well, you could mention that after studying the subject intensively for 3 weeks, it has become clear that A is better than B because blah, 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 blah. So you could be giving us some information about your credibility, what kind of things you've researched. So I told you my credibility, I'm Scottish, whisky's from Scotland. What's your credibility? So if possible, you could put something like that in your paper too, but not absolutely essential. So, there's the background, Lafroig, Lagavulin, the big white buildings, they're on the south coast, they're right next door. Now, we've got the thesis statement. How does the thesis statement connect to the essay? Well, let's have a look here. Going back to the ICU example. ICU's ELA is the best university program in Japan because it is the only one that teaches A, critical thinking, B, academic skills, and C, digital literacy to a very high level. My body paragraph 1, and you guys are going to write a 5-paragraph essay. The first paragraph is your introduction, which we've covered. The second paragraph is actually body paragraph 1. The third paragraph will be body paragraph 2. The fourth paragraph, body paragraph 3. And the fifth paragraph is your conclusion. Simple, standard 5-paragraph essay. So here, my body paragraph 1 is the first of my 3 body paragraphs. And it's all going to be about critical thinking at ICU because that's the first of my 3 supports in my thesis statement. The second of my 3 supports in the thesis statement is about academic skills. So body paragraph 2 is going to be about academic skills. The third of my 3 supports is digital literacy, so my body paragraph 3 is going to be on digital literacy. So the three reasons, the three arguments, the three ideas, the three supports that come at the end of your thesis statement become the three areas of focus of your three body paragraphs. Rule of three. Now, how do we order these body paragraphs? Well, the body paragraph order, 1, 2, 3, follows the same order of the same topics in the thesis statement. Whichever is 1 becomes 1, whichever is 3 becomes 3. But how do we order these? Well, there's one pattern that puts the strongest arguments at the beginning and the end, and the weakest in the middle. Because people usually remember stuff at the beginning, and then their attention wanders, and then when, hey, it's nearly finished, their attention comes up again. So there's a school of thought that says we should have the strongest paragraphs at the beginning and the end. We've got two other patterns. Pattern number 2, if it's just two choices, good or bad. If you believe the choice is good, we would start with the bad and finish on the good. This is the pattern that believes in finishing with your argument and starting with the opposite argument. And pattern 3, a little bit different again. If we've got more than two choices, we would put choice A and the good and the bad points in the same paragraph, B, good and the bad, same paragraph, and C, the good and the bad in the same paragraph. And the last one would be comparing. I'll go into this in more detail in a moment, so don't worry that we're going a little bit fast. Comparing each choice, starting with the worst and ending with the best. These would be 4 different distinct patterns that we could use. So let's see how these look in example. There's a progression in your pattern. There always is. And the reader should be able to see the logical progression of your ideas. The reader should be able to see the pattern. It shouldn't be random. Should not be random. The reader should see your pattern. So let's look at pattern 1 in more detail. What have we got here? Here's our thesis. ICU's ELP topic, Best University Skills Program in Japan claim, because critical thinking, academic skills, digital literacy. Pattern 1. Body paragraph 1 is all about critical thinking, 2 is academic skills, and 3 is digital literacy. Digital literacy is strong and critical thinking is strong because most universities don't teach these. The academic skills would be a weaker argument because every university teaches academic skills. Although not all with as charming a teacher as me. But they all teach it. So that would be pattern 1. Pattern number 2, slightly different thesis statement. We're only comparing 2 things. We're only comparing Waseda and ICU. Although Waseda's SILS is superior to ICU in terms of computer facilities, ICU is superior in terms of teaching digital literacy and critical thinking. That's my thesis. So how would it be ordered? Body paragraph 1, I'm starting with computer facilities. And here, Waseda's the best. They got 24-hour-a-day open computer rooms, they're big, so on. Paragraph 2, we're moving on to digital literacy. And here, ICU is the best. So I would have all this information about ICU being the best. And most important, number 3, critical thinking, really important skill. Bang, ICU is the best. Information, information, information. So that would be a layout of pattern 2. What about 3? ICU's program is superior to Waseda in terms of critical thinking, academic skills, and digital literacy. We're saying we're the best in all of them. Well, maybe not. Let's have a look and see how it pans out. So body paragraph 1 could be critical thinking, and we're comparing Waseda, 1 good point, 3 bad points, and we're comparing ICU, 1 bad point, 3 good points. Now this order is very important. If it's the order you don't believe in, if you don't believe Waseda is the best, start with their good points, finish with their bad. When you get to the choice that you do believe is the best, start with the bad points and end with the good. Paragraph 2, academic skills. We don't believe WASD is the best, so we start with the good points, end with the bad. ICUs, we do believe they're the best, start with the bad, end with the good. And same digital literacy. We don't believe WASD is the best, so we start with them first. Good point, bad, bad, bad. Get to ICU, we do believe they're the best, because I'm here. Bad, good, good, good. Swap them around. That would be pattern 3. Let's go to pattern 4. Okay. We've got 3 choices now. We've got WASD, we've got ICU, and Sophia is in the mix here. ICU is the best program in Japan because overall it's better than Sophia and WASD in terms of academic skills, critical thinking, so on. Let's look how this pans out. So, body paragraph 1. We're comparing Sophia in everything. So maybe Sophia is good in academic skills, but bad point digital literacy, critical thinking, so on and so on and so on. Then second best choice, this would be worst choice, second best choice could be, okay, WASD is quite good at this, it's quite good at this, but bad point, bad point. And then we get to the best choice last, ICU, it's the best choice, so we start with their bad points. Good point, good point, good point. That would be a pattern 4. Organizational. Now, I've only given you 4 patterns. There's more. These are just the 4 simpler ones. It doesn't really matter which pattern you choose, as long as the reader can see there is a pattern. It should not be random. WASD, computers, okay. Sophia, critical thinking, not so okay. ICU, computers. Don't make it random. We want to see your brain at work, and we want to see the organizational pattern you've chosen. And number 2, the organizational pattern should make sense. If you're looking at a change in something over time, it makes sense to start in the past, middle is the present, future is the end. That would make sense in a chronological pattern. So whatever pattern you choose, it should make some kind of logical sense, and it should be easy for the reader to see, i.e. me, the reader, to see this pattern. We want to see examples of a mind at work. Okay, moving on. The conclusion. Certain things that we need to do in a conclusion. The conclusion doesn't have anything new. Don't put new stuff in the conclusion. The conclusion is for a repeat of the strongest points from the 3 body paragraphs. If there's something new, if it's so good, stick it in one of the 3 body paragraphs. Don't put new ideas, new topic, new information in the conclusion. The conclusion is a repeat for your strongest points. And that leads into number 2. It summarizes the main supporting points. And at the end, we repeat the thesis statement at the end. But don't repeat the thesis statement word for word for word. Paraphrase the thesis statement. So that means rewrite the thesis statement to mean the same thing, but rewritten in different words. So at the beginning, if you are saying A is better than B because of X, Y, Z, at the end you could say, as a result of the influence of X and Y and Z on A, it can easily be concluded that it's better than B. We're saying the same thing in a different way. That's what we mean by paraphrase. And if you want, number 4, at the very, very, very end of the conclusion, you can say something like, this paper has only looked at A and B because I don't have enough time or whatever. C is also important, but C has not been looked at due to time constraints. So always suggest some areas for more research for other people to do in the future. Is a nice way of finishing off your conclusion. So that's your 5 paragraphs. Introduction, 3 bodies, and a conclusion. Now we go back to the beginning. What have we missed? Very, very, very first thing anybody reads is the title. I mentioned don't do boring titles. Well, academic titles have usually got 2 parts. The first part is short, then we have a colon, and then we have a long part. The first part is basic, then it's detailed. First part is general, the long part is specific. The first part is amusing, the second part serious. First part gets attention, the second part gives the topic and the position. So, let's look at this. An examination of ICU's ELA. Terrible title. Doesn't have two parts, doesn't get your attention, certainly not amusing, not good title. So let's mess around with it a little bit. How about this? ICU, an examination of the benefits of studying at ICU's ELP. Now we've got a two-part title. The first part is basic, second is more detailed, first is general, second is specific. It's not really amusing, and it doesn't really get attention. So, how can we be amusing? How can we get attention? In English, there's a technique in writing called alliteration. And this is when we take two or more words that begin with the same letter or the same sound. Incredible ICU, an examination of the benefits of studying at ICU. So I've used an alliteration in the first part. Incredible begins with an I, ICU begins with an I. So that alliteration can be like an attention-getting device. And the choice of word, incredible, is a good positive type word. And the second part of my title is emphasizing the good positive parts of ICU. Now, if my thing about ICU is positive, I couldn't really use a negative word here because it wouldn't match. So if you're saying a bad thing, you need a kind of bad matching word here. If it's a good thing, it would need to be like a good matching word. So let's look at some examples of improving titles. Okay, ICU, an examination of the benefits becomes incredible ICU. We've already saw this example, right? So how about help for AIDS sufferers could become aid for AIDS? Another word for help is aid. And AIDS is also the name of the disease. So here I've got a real alliteration that I've actually repeated the words. WikiLeaks. Everybody knows about WikiLeaks, been in the news. Well, WikiLeaks, positive or negative? I happen to think it's a good thing. Could become wonderful WikiLeaks. I've got the alliteration going. Wonderful WikiLeaks, an examination of the implications of WikiLeaks on human rights in the 21st century. Something, something, something. We can also play around with the titles. For example, the BBC. Everybody knows the BBC. In media literacy circles, they're sometimes referred to as the biased broadcasting corporation because they always take the side of the British government and royal family. Fox News. Terrible news station. Fox News. You're making a play on words. Big Brother is watching you. George Orwell, 1984. It could be watching Big Brother. WikiLeaks is about. Because instead of the government watching you, WikiLeaks is people watching the government. So something like that can make your title amusing, witty, attention-getting, because the title is the very first thing people will read. And you don't want to bore them before they've even started. So the more witty, the more creative, the more amusing, the more attention-getting title, people go, hey, that's kind of funny. And it puts them in a good frame of mind that they want to read the rest of your paper because you've already shown that you've been creative in the title. And they think, hey, if they've been creative in the title, they must be really creative in the paper. But if the title is boring, oh no, not another boring paper, is the reaction that you don't want in the readers of your paper. So, titles are important. So, jumping from the very, very beginning to the very, very, very end, you need a bibliography, a works cited page. And this is a list of all the sources that you used writing the paper. This could be books, both books, real physical print books from the library and online books. Reports, again, print, online, journals, databases, media stories, even video. There are many documentary movies if you watch a documentary movie and you get information from the documentary movie, list the documentary movie in your works cited list. These are the list of papers that you've used. What else? Interviews and surveys. Maybe you interview your teacher in high school. Maybe you interview your friends. If you're interviewing those people, list the interviews in your works cited, because it's another source of information. And if you use any visuals, any graphs, any charts, any photographs, you also need to say where you got those from. So your works cited list has got a list of everything that you used to write this paper. Now, why do we do this? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first one is if I find, or anybody finds your paper really, really, really interesting, and they want more information about your paper, if you've listed all the sources, I can go back to the original sources and read the original, because your paper might only be taking a little bit from these, and I want to read more. It's so interesting, I want to know more. Well, you listing them tells me where to go and look. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if I don't believe you, no way, those numbers can't be right, I can go back to the original and check for myself, because you've told me where they are. But far and away, the last most important reason for doing this is so that we are not accused of being a plagiarist. Now, this is one of the biggest problems between Western-style universities and maybe Asian ones. That in the Asian model, copying a professor is seen as flattery to the professor. In a Western idea, it's not. You can copy anything you like, as long as you say where you're copying it from. So for example, let me come down here, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I come over here, and I decide pencil case. I'm taking this pencil case. Hey, do you like my pencil case? Yeah. Yeah, my pencil case, very nice. I've stolen her pencil case. I'm a thief. Totally a thief. Now, if I bring it back, and I ask, what's your name?
Rena.
Rena, and where are you from?
Sendai.
Sendai, and where did you buy the pencil case?
Sendai.
Sendai. Do you like Rena's pencil case? She bought it in Sendai. How long ago?
2 years.
2 years ago. I'm telling you all the information about this pencil case. It's not mine, it's Rena's. She bought it in Sendai in 2010. I cannot be accused of stealing this now. I'm just borrowing it because I'm actually telling you it's hers. Well, that's the same when we take information. Thank you very much. That's the same when we take information from a book. Oh, here's a beautiful paragraph. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in my essay. If I say where I've taken it from, I'm not stealing. I'm saying this is from Professor Smith's book on page 17. The title of the book is A History of ABC. I'm telling all the information. I'm not stealing. If I say nothing, I'm saying this is my paragraph. I wrote it. That's stealing. It's called plagiarism. And every year in the West, people get kicked out of university for doing this. It's a very serious offence. Imagine I came over and I stole your wallet and I stole your money. That's very serious. Stealing other people's ideas, other people's words, other people's writing, academically, is equally serious. So anything you copy, you need to say where you copied it from. Very important. Super important. And this is the one thing that will be emphasised to you again and again and again and again in your first year at ICU. Say where you copied things from. There's no problem. What am I standing on? Something there. Very important stuff. So make sure you don't get accused of plagiarism. No, don't have any whiteboard in here, so I can't really draw. Don't worry about that. So don't want plagiarism. So what do we do then? You can have footnote references, and you can explain in the text what these things are. So for example, according to Professor John Smith, a specialist in Mexican history at Tokyo University's history department, South America suffered under the rule of the Spanish. He said, inverted commas, Cortes was the worst of the Spanish conquistadors. End comment, number 1. And then at the bottom of the page, on number 1, it would say, Smith, John. The name of the book could be A History of Mexico Since 1492. Columbia University Press, 1957. And I would put down page 12. I've given the reader all the information they need to find the same book I used. And in my text, I've actually told people, who is John Smith? Maybe John Smith is the janitor at Harvard. Maybe he's the cook at Columbia. So tell people, who is he? He's a professor. Okay, but they're all professors. Professor of what? This is about politics and history, so he should be about a professor in a related area. So we give the background information to tell us why we should believe this guy. Well, if he's writing about Mexico and he's a professor of Mexican history at Tokyo University, probably we should believe him. So anytime we use this kind of information in our writing, we put that kind of stuff round about it so that we know how believable is the guy or woman. And we put the number 1, and at the bottom of the page, you would have your footnote with the list of the book or the website or the article or the journal, all the data, so that people can know where it came from. And the footnote would look something like this. 1, John Smith. Name. Then 1 little comma, Spanish colonialism in Latin America. Harvard University Press, published in Massachusetts, 1999, and this quote comes from page 17. Now, no time to show you here, but when you come to ICU, most students always think making these bibliographies, works cited, reference lists are a real pain. You'll be very happy to know there's a software program that can do all of this for you. And I teach it to my students in the first year, and now we're putting it on the curriculum that all the students will learn how to use this software. Very useful piece of software called Zotero. So you'll learn how to use that in your first year. But just for these papers, you can just follow this kind of style. Okay, academic writing rules, almost finished. Be careful with personal pronouns. I, my, we, me, our, us, you. You don't really want to use these personal pronouns in your writing. Using these personal pronouns makes the reader think about you or think about them. It takes attention away from the topic. So try to avoid using these, except for one time. The I think, my experience is okay if your experience is directly connected to the topic. So if you're writing about education in Japan as your topic, and you want to say, in my Japanese high school, this is okay. Because the subject is Japanese high school and the subject of your paper is Japanese high schools, it matches, no problem. Now, if you are writing about the Iraq War, about people being killed in Iraq, and you have never been to Iraq, saying, in my opinion, this is really bad, is not good, because you've got no personal experience that's directly related to the topic. So the I and the my can be used if your personal experience does connect to the topic. If it doesn't, don't use any of these. Okay, what else have we got? Don't use contractions. This is things like don't, can't, wouldn't, shouldn't. We always use the full version. Do not, cannot, would not. And we don't use run-on expressions, things like etc. and so on. Don't say Toyota, Nissan, etc. We would say Toyota, Nissan, Honda, and other Japanese car manufacturing companies. Always explain what you're talking about. Don't use etceteras and so ons. We don't want to use phrasal verbs. Things like worked out. He worked out the answer to the puzzle. No. We use a one-word verb. He solved the puzzle. Scientists came up with the answer. No. Scientists developed the answer. Always use the one word, more concise verbs. Don't use the phrasal ones. What else have we got? Almost done. Don't use casual words like kind of. So many students, especially those who have spent time in the US, it's kind of like cool, kind of like, you know, kind of cool, like kind of. And that might sound okay when you're chatting to your friends. It looks horrible when it's written down in an academic essay. So try to use a more formal, more higher level, less casual type of language. And you want to reference all the facts, all the data, all the opinions. Any time that you've brought in anything that's not your own knowledge, your own information, we need a reference for it. So, for example, if I say Japan is an island country, is there anybody here that doesn't know this? No, everybody knows it. So I don't need a reference for it. But how many islands does Japan have? Don't say 4. How many islands does Japan have? Anyone know? You're Japanese and you don't know how many islands are in your own country? It's over 3,000. It's a lot, right? Now, the specific number, I don't know. But if I go to a website and I find out that Japan has 3,147 islands, I would need to put a reference in for where did I get this number from? Because it's not mine. I didn't go around counting them. So any data, any information, any opinions, any words that are not yours, you need to say where they came from. And this is very important because no one in this room, except for me, of course, no one in this room has perfect written English. If you did, you wouldn't be in this room. You'd be exempt from the ELA and you'd go straight into ICU classes in September. So you're here to improve your English. It's not perfect. Might be very good, but it's not perfect. But if we've got this kind of quite good, not quite perfect, quite good, not quite perfect English, and then whammo, here's this Shakespeare level English. And then it drops back down to quite good, not quite, doesn't look the same. It's easy for teachers to spot what was written by one student and what's been copied for something else. So when you copy stuff, there's no problem with copying. Just tell us, where did you copy it from? And it's perfectly okay. Put the inverted commas around it to tell us it's copied and it came from here. Fine, not a problem. When you copy and don't tell us, that's plagiarism, that's theft, that's cheating. Not so good. So, that's almost about it. Today's lecture, these are some online things. I'll put links to these on the Net Commons page. If you go to the University of North Carolina, this is a great website. And on this website, you can click on links. If you're not sure how to write a conclusion, find the conclusion link, click on it, and here's a big description about conclusions. You've got a problem with conditional sentences, find conditional, click it, here's a description. It's great. The OWL English Purdue EDU, kind of similar, but it has exercises that you can do to improve your writing. If you've got a problem with grammar, go to the grammar section, choose the exercises you can work through. And the guide to thesis statements is quite a good guide to those. And the top one's Harvard University's Academic Writing Center on Introductions. These links will all be put on the Net Commons page, so if you do get any problems, you can click on it and go and look through those. And only leaves me to say one more thing. Good luck. But I'm sure you're not going to need luck, because you're all good, hard-working students who are not going to do anything over the Christmas holidays except research right, research right, research right. So of course all your papers are going to be perfect. You don't need luck. But just in case you do have a little bit of a Christmas holiday, I wish you guys good luck anyway. So, the paper. Got to write this 5-paragraph paper, as I said. No real word limit. 5 paragraphs usually comes in around 800 words, could be 700, could be 900. We want to see 5 distinct paragraphs. And remember, rules of paragraphs needs to have at least 3 or 4 sentences in a paragraph. 1 sentence does not a paragraph make. So, 3 or 4 or more sentences per paragraph, preferably more. 5 paragraph essay, nice title, bibliographic list at the end, topic entirely up to you as long as it fits with the 5 A's. And as far as I've been led to believe, the deadline for submission is going to be January the 7th. And then after January the 7th, myself and some of the other ELA teachers, we'll be grading them online. We'll put some feedback comments on the essay online. And our feedback comments should all be done by the end of January. And then, from the beginning of February until about February the 25th, it's your job to improve this paper, to fix the things that we've said that are wrong with it. Because always, papers are not one shot finished, never. There's always improving and improving and improving. So there'll be a second draft of the paper where you can read our comments after January. You can look at what we've said, you can make the changes, improve the paper, and then from the 25th of February until about the 7th of March, we'll put a second set of comments on it. And the links to those websites today and some other bits and pieces, and especially whether it is okay or not okay to use images and graphs, I've put all that information on the Net Commons page. That's about it. So, any questions about what you've got to do? Questions? No. Well, the good news is I'm now finished, and ICU's got a special lunch prepared for us over in Dialogue House, and you're very, very privileged. The room we're in, normally there's no food allowed in that room. They've made a special effort just for you guys, so let's go eat. We're done.